Welcome, guys. Welcome back to another video. Welcome to Weekend's Corner. Once again, I'm apologizing because the past few days there has only been one video per day. My schedule of two per day sort of stagnated. I'm sorry about that. My sleep schedule is all over the place. I'm sorry. And as you can see, it's really dark. You can really see me. So if I want to make a video where the quality is a little bit better, I have to buy a lamp. I have to buy. I'm sorry about that. Um, if I want to make a quality where guys can see me, I have to do it like in the morning, but I sleep in the morning. It's a whole thing. Anyways, I hope you like my reaction of this video. Now we're back. World War One, 1916. It's gonna be really, really interesting. What's gonna happen here? I, you know, Let me think. What happened? 1916. The Russians got out in 1917, right? So that's not that. Well, we'll see. If you like my reaction, like, subscribe, and let's go in.
World War I was supposed to have been a short and glorious war. But by 1916, a new kind of industrialized warfare had seen the death toll soar into the millions, with no end in sight. Naval blockades were beginning to cause shortages of food and fuel across Europe, while thousands of women had entered the workforce, replacing the men sent to fight in their millions.
Yeah.
All sides were preparing for a long war.
Now think about it. How, Switzerland, they're lucky, man. They're really lucky because they were able to survive two world wars and never get, they're the ones that came out on top on the world wars. Overall, America, you did, but they're the ones that came out on top in terms of, they gained, I'm sure, a lot of money by, the Nazi gold, but they came out on top because they never really suffered, casualties. They were like neutral, don't cross us, that's it. Even when the whole country was surrounded by the Nazis, you know.
The war has raged for a year and a half as the Allies continue to battle the Central Powers, recently joined by Bulgaria.
Romania has to join them.
At sea, the British maintain their naval blockade of Germany, preventing the import of food and other vital raw materials. Germany has retaliated with a U-boat blockade of Britain, but has to limit its attacks to avoid provoking the neutral USA, whose citizens have already been caught in the crossfire. On the Western Front, French, British and Belgian troops are dug in opposite the Germans, both sides trapped in the bloody stalemate of trench warfare. On the Eastern Front, the Russians have ended their long retreat and stabilized the line, but their army has suffered huge losses.
My personal opinion, if the Russians sort of gave up Poland and stabilized the land initially in the war, I don't think overall it's have been better for them if they gave up Poland, because Poland is dead territory. I mean, it's extremely hard to safeguard it from all sides. Just give it up, go back, safeguard there.
On the Italian front, Italian troops have launched a series of costly, unsuccessful attacks against strong Austro-Hungarian defences. While on the Balkan front, the Central Powers have overrun Serbia, whose army is forced to make a bitter retreat through the Albanian mountains. Now, on the 5th of January, Austro-Hungarian troops attack Montenegro. They are delayed at the Battle of Mojkovac, but 3 weeks later, Montenegro is forced to surrender.
3 weeks is a lot for such a small country.
On the Caucasus front, the Russians launch a surprise winter offensive against Ottoman Turkish forces. 6 weeks later, Russian troops occupy the city of Erzurum. In April, they capture the Black Sea port of Trebizond.
Whoa!
Meanwhile, the
Turkey is
British
getting...
transport 2 motorboats to Lake Tanganyika in Africa. They finally arrive after a 10,000-mile trip by sea and land, and help the British seize control of the strategic lake from local German forces.
With 2 motorboats?
The same month,
That's how
in
it
German
took?
Cameroon, German troops besieged on Mora Mountain for 18 months finally surrender to the Allies. It marks the end of the Cameroon campaign.
Yeah. Verdun, I mean, that was where, you know, casualties were...
On the Western Front, the Germans unleash a devastating assault on the French fortress town of Verdun.
21st February.
German General Erich von Falkenhayn knows France will defend this symbolic town to the last man. His plan, in his own words, is to bleed France white in its defense.
Well, the problem is you bleed
It is the
yourself as well.
strategy of attrition. Verdun becomes one of the most terrifying battles of the war, a mincing machine, where infantry divisions are destroyed almost as fast.
You know, those 2 wars were so catastrophic in terms of scale and numbers that when you look at the wars after and before, not all wars, you know, the wars as, you know, horrifying in terms of casualties, but it's difficult to take them seriously, isn't it? Or maybe I'm just cynical. I don't know. You know, because you look at wars that happen nowadays, and you're like, you know, for example, in Chechnya there was a war, Chechnya against Russia, which was in many cases as horrific as Afghanistan was for the Americans. It lasted give or take 10 years. Well, it lasted a year and a half, but it lasted for like plus 8 years for the insurgencies. My point is the following. When the war happened, I think 10,000 Russians died and 30,000 Chechens. And well, that's a lot of people, 40,000, and there's a lot of, you know, sad songs written about that war, and you know, it's horrific. People come out of it with like your PTSD. Chechnya changed me. It was horrible. What must have been like 100 years ago? Because nowadays, you know, if there's a World War III, the millions of casualties, not only casualties, but then survivors who would come out of the war, I don't know. It's like 10,000 people died. How can you take that seriously when 300,000 died in a day? And 10,000 died in 10 years? Like, okay, oh my god, 10,000. I mean, I don't know. Am I a piece of shit? And I'm not trying to take away anything from the people who died, you know, fighting for the country or anything. You know, their sacrifice. I'm not trying to minimize it, but I don't.
Fast as they can be fed into the line. In Britain, 1 million men have already volunteered for military service. But the government
Talk about
realizes
propaganda.
it won't be enough.
There's still a place in the
Britain
line for
becomes the
you!
last major power to introduce conscription. That spring, on the Western Front, British troops are the last to be issued with steel helmets. The nature of trench warfare produces a high proportion of head wounds. The German Stahlhelm, the French Adrian helmet, and the British Mark I steel helmet offer limited protection from shell splinters and shrapnel.
How people survive.
Neutral Portugal has been cooperating with the British,
Yeah.
which seems to offer the...
British had, I think I said that, but Britain and Portugal have the longest ever continual alliance ever. I think it's 800 years now. It's insane. 1337, I think.
The best chance
Something
of
like
holding
that. It's a
on
long
to their
time.
African colony, Portuguese Angola. On the 9th of March, Germany retaliates by declaring war on Portugal.
Yeah.
On the Eastern Front, Russia launches an attack near Lake Narok to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun. But it's a disaster. There are 100,000 Russian casualties, and the attack fails to divert any German troops from the fighting at
5-1
Verdun.
casualties? Jesus Christ!
In Dublin, Irish Republicans launch an armed revolt against British rule.
Easter Rebellion.
It becomes known as the Easter Rising. and is put down after 6 days of street fighting.
Yeah, the Arabs, if someone got screwed in the First World War, it's them. They truly got screwed.
In the Middle East, after a 5-month siege, British forces at Kut surrender. General Townsend leads 9,000 British and Indian soldiers into captivity. About half later die from starvation or disease. Britain wants Arab support in its fight against the Ottoman Empire, so it's promised Arab leaders an independent Arab state.
Never happens. Never happens.
But now, Britain and France secretly sign the Sykes-Picot Agreement, planning after the war to divide the Middle East into British and French zones of control. Unaware of this deal, Hussein bin Ali, Sharif of Mecca, leads the Arabs in revolt against Turkish Ottoman rule. In the Battle of Mecca,
it's all about having leverage. If the Arabs had some kind of leverage over the French and English, they would have never reneged on their deal. But they don't have any leverage. They have an army, yes, but it's so far away from the British and the French. Number one, they don't have any leverage over them. So when they renege on their deal, they can only what happened? They can only shake their heads and be like, what? That's it? And they're like, that's it.
His forces seize control of the Holy City. On the Italian front, Austro-Hungarian forces launch a surprise attack at Asiago. Italian defences give way. Austro-Hungarian troops are poised to break through into northern Italy. That month in the North Sea, the German High Seas Fleet clashes with the British Grand Fleet at the Battle of Jetland. In the only major naval battle of the war, the British suffer heavier.
Yeah, what's funny is that both sides didn't want to have a major naval battle because there were these boats called the dreadnoughts that were very expensive to make. And if you lose one of them, you lose a lot of money, a lot of manpower, a lot of years of just making them, and you lose them. It's
losses, but claim victory as the German fleet withdraws and does not re-emerge from its base for the rest of the war.
The big push. Allies or enemies?
For the summer of 1916, the Allies have planned major simultaneous offensives against the Central Powers, from east and west. Now they are needed more than ever to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun and the Italians at Asiago. The Russians launch their attack first. On the Eastern Front, General Alexei Brusilov has carefully maintained the element of surprise. His troops break through the enemy lines, in some places advancing 60 miles and taking 200,000 prisoners.
That's a lot.
This brilliant, though costly, Russian attack achieves its aim, as the Central Powers are forced to redeploy troops from other fronts to shore up the line. At sea, British cruiser HMS Hampshire, en route to Russia, hits a mine and sinks off Orkney. Among the 650 dead is Britain's iconic Secretary of State for War, Lord Kitchener.
What?
3 days later in the Adriatic, Italian troopship Principe Umberto is sunk by a German submarine.
Damn those
It's
subs,
the
man.
deadliest sinking of the war,
How many?
with 1,900 lives lost.
Whoa, that's a lot. 2,000?
On the Western
like that?
Front, Britain and France launched their major summer offensive, the Battle of the Somme.
Yeah, the Somme,
Hopes are
man.
high for a breakthrough, but the first day is a disaster. A long Allied
those
artillery
cannons.
bombardment fails to knock out German defences, and waves of British infantry are cut down by machine gun fire as they advance into no man's land.
Talk about how, as humans, we don't really learn from our mistakes, do we? Because when the First World War is so horrific, in casualties, in death, in misery, and nothing is really gained. I mean, basically, all the empires gave way for America to take over. Nobody wins anything. Yes, a little bit of territory is exchanged. Germany gets blamed, loses a lot of territory. Russia, gets destroyed. Italy gains what? Some territory, a few islands. Austria-Hungary explodes. Bulgaria, loses some territory. The Ottoman Empire explodes. France, what? Regains Alsace-Lorraine. British, what the Britain gets? You know? So the First World War was basically the great powers fighting and then nobody coming out on top at the end of it. Except the US. Economic. You know? I don't know why. There was a book by, I don't know, the Great Illusion, The Big Illusion, where it said, it was a book written in 1910 by Manuel, I forgot his name, that basically said that there was never going to be any more wars. Never. Wars were over in Europe because the wars would be so cost effective that there would be no point. Gain, some terrain, 100 miles more or less. You're going to lose so much manpower and so much money that it's not going to be a worthy investment if you want to look at it that way. But no, wars, humans, and then 20 years later.
In the space of a few hours, the British suffer 57,000 casualties, a third of them killed. It's the worst day in the history of the British Army. But more attacks are ordered, and the battle will rage for another 5 months.
Romania gets fucking squashed here.
Encouraged by the Russian advance, Romania joins the Allies. But despite an initially successful advance into Transylvania, Romania quickly faces a counter-offensive from German, Bulgarian and Austro-Hungarian forces.
She gets squashed. I mean, she gains
the
a lot
Allied
after
force
the war.
at Salonika tries to support Romania by launching their own offensive towards Monastir. With Serbian troops in the lead, there are small gains, but dogged Bulgarian resistance prevents a breakthrough. On the Western Front, General von Falkenhayn finally calls off the attack at Verdun.
How many?
The French army has honoured their commander, General Naval's promise.
On ne
Ils
passe
ne
pas.
passeront pas. They shall not pass.
Yeah.
But victory comes at a terrible price. 365,000 casualties. The Germans lose almost as many. Verdun remains one of the bloodiest battles in human history. For his defeat at Verdun, Falkenhayn is sacked, and Germany's heroes of the Eastern Front, von Hindenburg and Ludendorff, take command in the west. Meanwhile, the Battle of the Somme continues. Near the village of Flers, the British introduce a new weapon they hope can break the deadlock of the trenches.
What is that?
It is called the tank.
the
Despite
British.
some
I thought the
small
Germans.
successes, the first tanks are too few in number and too prone to mechanical failure to make any real impact. On the Eastern Front, Russia's Brusilov offensive comes to an end. Casualty estimates vary wildly, but it's clear both sides have suffered catastrophic losses.
Yeah. What?
Neither the Russian nor the Austro-Hungarian army ever fully recovers.
1 million? 1.4 million?
On the
That's
Italian
insane.
front, heavy fighting rages throughout the autumn, as Italian forces make repeated, costly assaults against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River. The Battle of the Somme comes to an end amid autumn rain and mud. The Allies have advanced 10 miles at the cost of 600,000 casualties. German losses are about 450,000. The Allies reassure themselves that this is a winning strategy, because at this rate, Germany will run out of men first. Meanwhile,
What a way to put it. I know. We're gonna lose 10 million, but they're gonna lose 15. Not smart. It's basically just hammering themselves over and over and over again. It's I didn't know the Netherlands were able to stay neutral. Good for them. Good for them. Good for the Swiss. Good for the Netherlands. Good for the Danish. The Scandinavian countries looks like they're able to safeguard their neutrality. I mean,
disaster engulfs Romania as the country is
yeah,
overrun by the Central Powers.
yeah.
Romanian forces suffer 250,000 casualties. The remnants of its army take position alongside the Russians on the Eastern Front. That winter, Franz Joseph, Emperor of Austria since 1848, dies.
Can you imagine?
He is succeeded by his son, Karl.
The guy was emperor since 1848. That's 70 years. How many? 52, 16, 78, 68. Dude, the guy has been in fucking 70 years on the throne. And he has, a powerful,
In Britain, Prime Minister Herbert Asquith is forced from office and succeeded by David Lloyd George.
Never heard of him.
While General Joffre is replaced as French Commander-in-Chief by General Naval, who promises victory through bold, aggressive action.
I like that. Promises. What's he gonna promise? In 3 months, we surrender. Like, what?
Amid the comings and goings, US President Woodrow Wilson's attempts to mediate a peace settlement come to nothing.
Yeah.
Neither side
Oh my God!
is willing
The Zimmerman Agreement. I was wondering what's coming. Yeah. Talk about imbecile.
to make concessions.
The way the US enters the war is hilarious. Germany sends a telegram to Mexico to join the war against Russia, against the US. Mexico, I don't know the state of their army in 1916, 17, but Anyways, guys, I hope you liked my reaction. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'm gonna finish the series quite soon. There's only 2 more years left, 17, 18, and we're done. And then afterwards, I'm gonna do, I have there are a lot of plans coming. Okay, the Caesar series is coming. I might do diversify. I might do something else. Not only I might do comedy. I like comedy, love it. Okay, so I might react to that. I might make movie reactions. Tell me if you like those. Anyways, see you guys next time.